I'm Andrea Chu.
And I'm David Belleville.
And we're here to recap this devastating week of Big Brother. Our fallen soldier, T'Kor.
T'Kor, you're gone far too soon. You were easily the most entertaining house guest of the season and one of the most entertaining house guests we've had in a long time. I mean, he's going to be remembered forever.
I will miss his antics. I will miss his chaos. I will miss his competition skills. I'm a little bit nervous that the house is going to be boring. The show's going to be boring without him.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that someone's going to step up and take over as a gamer, like someone who's ready to play.
Yeah, the power is up for grabs now that T'Kor is out of this house, and a lot of people are probably a little bit more comfortable now that he is departed. For the fans at home, I think, you know what, I'm calling it right here. T'Kor will be back in some form or fashion, not on this season of Big Brother, but in a future season of Big Brother, and then you've got all those other CBS reality shows. T'Kor's not going anywhere. He's too good of television.
I think we'll see him on The Challenge. I know he wants to do it, and I think he'd be good, and good TV on The Challenge. My other favorite show. I love The Challenge.
But yeah, so T'Kor's gone, and it feels weird without him, but we still have a job to do, and we have to break down this week, and it was our girl T'Kor who had all the power.
Yes, so it's kind of where T'Kor's downfall began, which is when he volunteered himself to be on the block for T'Kor. He felt like, T'Kor is my friend. I volunteered to be a pawn for everybody else. I have to do it for her too. He did not need to do this.
No.
A pawn can't be someone who's that big of a target.
Not to mention, the way that this week was shaping up, he had no reason to put himself in that jeopardy. He had somebody that he aligned with in power in T'Kor, and he was in the good graces of everybody in that house. So for him to put himself in that jeopardy, honestly, it's 100% his fault. And kudos to T'Kor for, getting out the biggest competitor of the house during her reign without getting much blood on her hands, because he's the one that volunteered.
I had a pit in my stomach when he did it, and it just grew deeper and deeper with each competition loss.
Yeah.
So the first one was the veto competition, where we had the rewards and the punishments, which is always a fun little extra thing where they wear silly costumes.
And no matter what he would have chosen to do with his position in that game, he wasn't going to end up with a veto. The last person normally gets that veto, and so where he positioned himself, he was never going to get that veto. But he also didn't have to end up with the punishment that he ultimately got. Can you remind us and talk a little bit about how things shook out with him and T'Kor during this comp?
Yeah, so T'Kor had the option of, he wasn't going to take the veto, but he did take the he did have the $5,000 that he could have taken, but he intentionally gave it up, gave it to T'Kor, so he took the punishment because he did not want her to have to do the punishment during her HOH, which is very nice, and I think he meant it genuinely.
Yeah.
But this is where he went wrong with his strategy, because he kind of thought that everything would be like a tit for tat, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. I did this nice thing for you, so you should help me out. But he never solidified deals.
No, he never did. And he always just made that assumption that because he did something for someone else that he'll get that favor in return. But that's not how this game works, first of all.
No.
And second of all, he proved time and time in this game to try to assume power when he wasn't the one in power. He tried to assume power during Cedric's HOH and got very upset with Cedric when he failed to go through with the plan of that T'Kor had mustered up. And he also had this grand plan under T'Kor's HOH where he was going to volunteer as a pawn that ultimately didn't come to fruition. So I really identify him also trying to do too much with other people's HOHs. Like, it's okay, T'Kor, to step back and let the house and the cards fall where they will.
This would have been the week for him to step back, and he did not do that. But I think he had this idea that he was like, this is the obvious choice. We should all just be doing this without actually ensuring that people were on the same page as him. He was just like, duh, let's do it. Here we go. Here's the plan. Like, almost like barreling through with the plan when people were obviously doing other things that were better for their games.
And so much of his gameplay has worked out, no matter how bonkers or ludicrous it was. He always found a way to be okay in the end. But in this instance, obviously, he ended up being eliminated, so his plan didn't work out. But I wonder if, because of his previous successes with his unusual approach, it kind of got to his head to where he thought that perhaps he could go on the block and he was going to be fine because he's survived so many times in the past. And so I wonder if just a combination of all of this.
A little too big for his britches.
He got a little too big for his britches and didn't see this coming. And so unfortunately, it was T'Kor who was evicted, but he wasn't the only one that had a difficult week in the Big Brother house. Because this veto comp presented a lot of punishments, and some were pretty hardcore.
Okay, so the 3 main punishments were T'Kor was the AI assist, where he had to wear his little costume and his tiny little shorts, and every time the Big Brother asked a question, he had to go to the encyclopedia and look up the answer. And he even had, I don't know if you noticed this, when he got called in the middle of the night, he had a pajama version of the same costume. It was looser but still shiny and silver.
Those punishments where you are woken up in the middle of the night and then have to perform a task like that would be my downfall in this game, because sleep is one of the few things you can really control. And so when you lose control of your sleep schedule in the Big Brother house, that's a recipe for insanity.
Yeah.
And so that was a tough one. So Joseph's punishment was to go up into a secluded room in the Big Brother house, and Matt, long lost Matt, first one evicted from the Big Brother house this season, is left on an AI loop, just speaking and speaking for hours and hours and hours on end while Joseph is trapped in this room. There's no escape, and he's forced to endure the madness for 24 hours.
So this is worse than any other 24-hour confinement thing that they've ever had, because that person, Matt, already don't need to hear his voice again, and it's on a loop for 24 hours. The entire time he was in that room, Matt's voice was talking. That's way worse than just being in silence, I think.
There's no escape from it, because at least if you're by yourself in solitude and seclusion, you can strategize, you can think about certain moments in the game and how they may come up in the future. You can think about certain things that have happened in the past and how they, you can formulate relationships and alliances, but there was no opportunity with this pure torture that Joseph had to endure, and that has to leave some sort of psychological effect.
Oh yeah, it's like torture. God. And can I just say, thank the Lord that Angela did not receive this punishment.
Oh, she would have been gone.
Her enemy, Matt, imagine if she was trapped in that room. I think that would have been her breaking point.
That would have done it for her.
Yeah.
But speaking of Angela, she didn't get off easy either.
No.
A week after being a have-not and having her charcuterie board eaten, she is dealt another torturous punishment where she has to pick up 1,000. I think it was 1,000.
I think it was 1,000. Yeah.
Little ping pong balls with one of those extension grabbers, walk them across the backyard, and deposit them in a trash can, one by one, in under 12 hours.
And the bad part too was every once in a while she would just get sprayed with slime, radioactive slime, and then showered off.
Yeah.
I really actually felt so bad for her because she was sobbing at one point. But went into this competition with such joy and determination.
Oh,
she did.
And when that competition started, I even said out loud, she's going to cry during this punishment.
Yeah.
And I think she was a little naive going into it by how torturous this was really gonna be. I mean, all night long for hours, walking miles back and forth. I loved, though, how her housemates, some of them, stayed up and stuck it out.
That was really cute. Yeah.
That was a sweet moment.
If you had to pick one, what do you think is the worst punishment?
Probably Joseph's.
I agree.
You can't get away from it.
I agree.
At least with Angela's, she had a team of
you're
supporters.
With people. Yeah. You get exercise because your steps in. Yeah.
And then Tucker's wasn't that bad. It's just the sleep disruption that would have really.
Yeah, he had fun with it though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, T'Kor is doing these AI Instigator deep fake messages throughout the house, and there was all this chitter chatter that it was actually Angela. And Cam and Makensy, I think, are two people that come to mind, were so confident that it was Angela. They were like, it's so clear it's her. When do we call her out for it? They knew it was her. And Tucker's overhearing this. So being Angela's ally, he goes up to her and he was like, just so you know, people are kind of thinking this deep fake thing is you. I just wanted to give you a heads up that people are talking about you.
Okay.
And rather than walking away from that conversation and thinking like, this guy has my back. He's giving me a warning ahead of time. She walks away from that conversation and is like, Tucker, got to get that guy out.
Well, I don't think that we are meant to understand anything that's going on in Angela's head.
This is true.
She is living in an alternate universe where one thing happens in reality and she perceives it a completely different way. She reacts and responds to situations unlike any other Big Brother player I've ever seen. And it's sometimes concerning a little bit, and other times it's total phony act, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's very unpredictable nonetheless.
I'm getting a little tired of her antics. Like, it's the same thing over and over, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of not funny anymore.
Yeah, but to her credit, if I'm going to give her a sliver of credit here, Tucker was playing multiple angles in this house. And so for her to be a little uneasy about where Tucker's allegiances lie, I don't think was necessarily too far off base, but how dramatic and deep she let it get, and the fact that in this certain instance Tucker did have her back, she let it get to her so much rather than just filing it away for a later date. You know what I mean?
And it's like, if she was correct to be a little suspicious, you should be suspicious of everyone a little, but in this case, she doesn't have a lot of people on her side, and he is someone who was on her side. So why would you flip on that person?
It doesn't make sense, but again, not much of what Angela does in this house makes sense. But regardless, one thing of note too, Makensy was able to take herself off of the block.
Kudos to her.
Again, it's her second AI arena competition. She's starting to develop a little bit of a reputation of being someone who can compete and do well in comps. Granted, these were just AI arena comps. Crucial to her safety, though. So worth mentioning. Congrats on that, Makensy. But, of course, that ultimately led to Tucker being evicted from that house. And that's going to be a great segue to another installment of David's Diary Room. This eviction of Tucker was monumental in this game, and it drew lines in the sand. It was a divided vote where afterwards we could really start to see how the future of the remaining house guests might unfold. And so the votes to keep Tucker in the Diary Room were Joseph, Rubina, and Chemo. And the votes to get rid of Tucker were Cam, Chelsea, Makensy, and Quinn. And Leah. And so it was a 5-3 vote. We finally have a vote where the house seems a little bit divided, and that could stay that way throughout the rest of the game. You have Joseph, who has sort of been a free agent in the Big Brother house, but said he had a final two with Tucker, which was revealed this week, and appeared by his vote to stay loyal to Tucker, despite knowing that it's really important to stay on the right side of the vote in this house. Rubina, she was obvious. She was always going to keep Tucker. And then you have Chemo, who aligns himself with T'Kor, and it was very obvious that he would probably stay with what T'Kor was going for. But once having power in this house, Chemo is now on the wrong side of the vote. So this vote has really proved that power is fleeting in this game. And Chemo, who was at the top of the house with T'Kor, is now on the wrong side of the house. For Chelsea, she's being credited with coming up with the plan to evict Tucker, although, as you and I have discussed, that we think it would have happened regardless.
Yeah, I think it's kind of silly that she took credit for it. It's so obvious he's a big target, and he's on the block. Everyone got him out. You didn't need to, rally the house to do that.
So what we're left with now is two sides of the house, Joseph, Rubina, Chemo, and T'Kor. And then you've got Cam, Chelsea, Leah, Makensy, and Quinn. So, having laid all of that out, in my opinion, Quinn becomes the new target. I know I didn't mention Angela right now, but she's just too unpredictable and is more of a number than anything.
Yeah.
Who do you see being the new Tucker in this house, wielding the power but also becoming a pretty big target? I think it might be Quinn.
I think it's Quinn as well. Only because he is flying too close to the sun constantly. He's trying to work with every single person, protect people in this group, protect people in this group. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it every single way. You need to stay loyal to a certain group of people and ride with them. Him constantly flip-flopping is going to come back to him. And we already saw a little glimpse of that. T'Kor being like, if you put Chemo on the block, you're losing me and you're losing all of us. I do have a theory, however.
Okay.
And it's that T'Kor wanted Tucker out secretly.
Well, elaborate.
Well, so she kept claiming like he's just a pawn, and like even if come eviction night, he's on the block, we'll have the numbers to save him. She was theoretically working with him. I think this was actually a genius plan. If she really didn't want him to go home, she would never have nominated him because she knew what she was doing.
Yeah. Well, and it's always easy for the HOH to put someone on the block that's going to volunteer. And
Yeah.
so even if that's the case, it didn't make sense for her to put someone else on the block because then she would have just gotten more blood on her hands when she had an out with Tucker.
But I feel like she always knew there was a huge possibility that Tucker would go home on her HOH because look at this. A huge target's out of the house. She comes out looking squeaky clean because it looks like he did it to himself.
Unreal, which is super strategic if that was her play.
Mm-hmm.
She also didn't campaign very hard. Once she had her nom set, she kind of just sat back and let the house do the rest.
Yeah.
She didn't really convey one way or another that this person needs to get out. We need to go after Angela. We need to go after Makensy. It was kind of like, these are the noms. The rest is up to you.
Which is why I kind of think she was like, if Tucker goes home, Tucker goes home. Like, it is what it is.
And she's smart enough to know that the reality of Tucker going home can happen without much involvement on her part. And so it is the fact that she ended up squeaky clean, to use your words after this week, is, if she makes it to the end, this week will be talked about.
Yeah.
This week
it was
will be talked
a
about.
great move for her, but I just think like it wasn't so innocent as it seemed. Like I think she knew fully what she was doing the whole time.
T'Kor up
Scheming.
to no good.
So, we got shifting dynamics. We have a new HOH week. They played I don't know what it's actually called. I always call it the egg roll competition.
Egg roll competition.
Because
I
they
like this one.
get the eggs and then they roll it down the ramp.
It looks like fun.
Yes. Angela did not try because she didn't want to become a have-not.
You know what? It was really lame to see someone not competing in that game, but I actually really understood her logic. I think she would have needed to evict herself from that house if she had to suffer through one more week of a punishment or a have-not situation. So,
yeah, possibly.
You know what? She's got to look out for herself, and in that moment, I think that was okay.
Yeah, and Quinn ends up winning with this like weirdo technique. Like he took the egg and he was like,
yeah, he's shaking it. He broke it at one point.
he was like, it distributes the yolk and it makes it easier to roll. Maybe he's right because he won, but I've never seen anyone do that, and they've played this competition like a million times. So.
He's an egg-spurt, obviously.
Okay.
That was funny.
His eggs, swinging his little eggs around.
We love a pun. Okay. Anyways,
so again,
get us back on track.
We're in the same situation where Quinn has to decide who to stay loyal to.
Well, dude needed power in the worst way because he could have very easily been put on the block by anyone in this house. But now that he's got power, his true colors are going to show because he's got, in one way or another, something in the works with every member of this house, it seems. So his nominations are revealing.
Yeah, he ends up nominating Angela. No
Easy.
big surprise. That's an easy person. Rubina, who just was linked to Tucker and nothing else.
Yeah.
And Chemo, his once ally. That was the most revealing nomination. And I do think it's going to affect Quinn in the long run because he thinks he's cool with everyone. And the Chemo nomination is going to turn people.
Well, and we're starting to see now exactly what side of the house Quinn sees a future with. Again, divided down the lines of our Tucker vote. But if I'm aligned with Quinn this week, I'm also looking at how he's engaged with other housemates, and so I'm keeping myself at a distance.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Quinn is no longer in power, I feel like his days are going to be numbered.
And speaking of our guy Quinn,
yes,
I have a little something to chew on.
Oh, take it away.
Why are we yelling in the diary rooms? Why are we yelling? Namely Quinn, but everyone. I feel that the producers tell them to be like exaggerated and emotional and animated. That's one thing. But what ends up happening is it comes across super fake. Like they'll be like, oh, with this person in power, I need to figure out who in this house I can trust, which is just not how people talk. Like I would rather them just be honest in that room. If they are feeling that emotional, then be that emotional, but don't play it up for the camera because then I'm like, what is the point of seeing this? It just feels like scripted and weird.
Who do you think is the worst offender?
Quinn.
Yeah.
He's screaming. Every single time he's screaming, he's like jumping up and down. He's like coming close to the camera. Like, why are you doing that? Just
Chill
be
out.
honest. I feel like he thinks that he's playing this type of character on TV, and he's like playing into it every chance he gets, which I don't know if he's gonna like watching it back. I don't like watching it the first time. I don't know. Quinn, stop yelling.
You heard it here first. Quinn needs to turn down the volume a little bit. How do you feel like you would act in the diary room? Do you think
Like I would just be natural.
pretty chill?
I would just spill my true emotions.
Yeah.
Say how I'm feeling. If I'm excited, I'd be excited, but I wouldn't like start doing cartwheels to try to like.
Yeah. I feel like I would be a super emotional player. I already know I would.
Yeah.
I would ride that wave. There would be a compilation at the end of the season of all of the tears I
100%,
shed.
100%. Yeah, you
but
would be.
I would use it as just a venting platform.
Yeah.
Like living with that many people in such tight headquarters and not being able to leave, I would just need to vent and share with America all of the things that bother me in the house and why they are bothering me. So I think I would use it more of like a therapy session than anything.
Which is fine, and at least it would be honest.
But I wouldn't put on a character. That is annoying.
No, it's so annoying.
Oh, that's something
Like,
that's
show
good.
me the real Quinn.
Yes. Who is the real Quinn?
Yeah.
Well.
So chew on that.
Ooh,
Chew
something
on
to
it a little
chew
bit.
on. Well, before we go, Andrea,
Mm-hmm.
you know I like to end every show
Mm-hmm.
with the way things have shaped up. Who's your current favorite in the house and why?
So the tides are turning. Tucker is gone. My fave is gone. I'm thinking Chelsea.
Okay.
I did mention her before as a favorite, even though she was kind of on the other side of the house. But she's recognizing that her Pentagon alliance has blown up, and she's immediately like, okay, how do I regain power? How do I like get my people together again?
Yeah.
Because other people like Makensy or Leah, who could be good, they could be good, especially Makensy, like winning all these competitions, are just like content with the fact that they have no alliances and they're waiting for someone to approach them.
Yeah, and it blows my mind because Makensy has shown flashes of being a competitor and seems very well liked. So it is strange to me that her and Leah are not in any alliance at all. I'm still sticking with my guy Cam though.
Oh my God.
And he's really starting to pick it up. He's got a veto win now, so he's got a comp win on his resume. So Cam, congratulations. He is starting to talk game and strategy in his diary rooms with other players. I will say that it is so lucky for his game that he is aligned with Chelsea, because Chelsea's pulling all the strings in that duo, and she's definitely the much more strategic thinker. But I think as long as those two are coupled together and Cam just continues to be his charming, naive little self through this game and wins a couple more comps, I'm telling you, Cam, keep an eye out for him. This is his time. This is his time to shine.
We will see how it plays out. I did see something on Twitter where Cam was explaining like, oh, I'm actually the outgoing one in my friend group. And Joseph was like, oh, your other friends must be comatose then.
Oh my God.
That's how I feel about Cam.
Well, I guess that's fair. And I guess that's going to do it for this week's episode of Hey House Guests. Tucker, if you're out there, we miss you already. Thank you for tuning in. For Andrea Chu, I'm David Belleville, and we will see you next time.
Bye.